Well, the movie star Jonathan Majors was found guilty today of assault and harassment for attacking his former girlfriend in a car. And within hours of that verdict, Disney fired the actor from all upcoming Marvel projects. His character, Kang the Conqueror, was set to be the big bad star across its series of films. But now Majors' future is up in the air. The jurors, they deliberated on this case. It was a jury trial. Took them about 6 hours, poring over the competing narratives about what really happened on March 25th. Now, ultimately, they did acquit him on 2 counts, but found him guilty on 2 other counts. They decided that Majors recklessly, but not intentionally, assaulted his then-girlfriend, Grace Jabbari. Then he harassed her outside of the SUV. Now, an attorney for Majors saying in a statement tonight, quote, "It is clear that the jury did not believe Grace Jabbari's story of what happened in the SUV because they found that Mr. Majors did not intentionally cause any injuries to her. Mr. Majors still has faith in the process and looks forward to fully clearing his name." I want to bring in now senior legal analyst and criminal defense attorney, the great Joey Jackson. We just last week were kind of doing a little bit of a role play with you and Ariva, one of you playing the prosecution, one playing the defense in this case. Those arguments all came up, but today there was a split verdict. And I want you to read the tea leaves for us here about what did the jury believe when it comes to some but not all of these charges against Majors?
Yeah, Laura, good to be with you. I have great respect and trust in our jury process. And, the realities are that they were there, they heard the evidence, and 6 members of a jury, as we have in the system for misdemeanors, found him guilty. If I had, as we look there, guilty of reckless assault in the 3rd degree, we can talk about what that means, harassment in the 2nd degree, and not guilty of the other things. But I think if you had to read the tea leaves, Laura, what it essentially means is that he did not possess the intent to actually harm her. However, he did so, meaning the harm, substantial pain, in a reckless way. What does that mean in English? It means that whenever you lay hands on someone, certainly you consciously disregard the risk that they could sustain substantial pain as a result of that. So I think what the jurors concluded is that while he may not have had a motivation, while it may not have been his intent, his objective, his purpose to hurt her, that based upon the fact that there was that interaction, he did so recklessly and consciously disregarding the risk that she could have been hurt. And that was the essence of their conclusion in voting unanimously that he'd be guilty of those 2 charges, both of which, of course, one, the criminal one, that's the assault charge, which is reckless, and then the other is just a non-criminal law or a violation of the law. That's the harassment, whenever it is that you strike someone without their consent.
As for some, they may look at this and say, well, hold on a second. If he didn't have the intent and they did not convict on the other charges, is there a right for appeal, a moment here to suggest that it was an inconsistent by dismissing or acquitting on 2 and remaining on the other 2? Likely he will appeal this decision if he's able to do so, which I understand he likely will. But remember, Jabbari took the stand and testified against him. And you and I both have been in these courtrooms before when you've got these emotional moments as she told the jury about him hitting her in the head, twisting her arm during the incident, and an attorney for Jabbari telling us that they are gratified by the guilty verdict. I wonder how important her testimony was in getting these convictions. And of course, did he testify? I wonder how they balanced that.
Yeah, so Laura, he did not testify, as many defendants do not. And of course, jurors are instructed you can't read anything into a defendant not testifying because it's their right not to do so. In terms of her testimony, she testified over 4 days, got very emotional, and you had to believe that that would be very compelling. In terms of the actual jury verdict itself, I don't think that it was inconsistent in as much as, again, a jury can conclude that you did not do something intentionally. And as you know very well, Laura, being the superstar prosecutor that you were, jurors assess, right, a status of a mind, right? We call it mens rea, the guilty mind. And they determined that, look, he didn't mean to do it in terms of intentionally doing it, but by virtue of him laying hands on her, he recklessly did it. So I don't see that as inconsistent. Last point, Laura, and that's this. On the issue of an appeal, I think they'll go after 2 other things. I think the first thing they'll go after that is defense attorneys for John Jonathan Majors will go after whether or not the prior bad acts, that is, other instances in their relationship, whether there was too much of an admission of that into evidence, such that the jurors could have concluded, hey, if you did bad things to her before, could you then have, and were you doing bad things now? Sometimes people conflate, look, you may have done something bad last week, the week before that, doesn't mean you did anything now. The second and final thing I think they'll attack many things, I shouldn't say final, but it's really the issues relating to really how it is that he went after her. And here's what I mean. When you look at and you're trying to do an appeal, you're putting together everything you possibly can. And in putting together everything they possibly can, I think they're going to look for propensity evidence. Are they going to argue that it was their propensity? Remember this. He filed a cross complaint against her, and they wanted to, the defense, cross-examine and delineate all of the probable cause as to why she should have been arrested. The judge excluded that, didn't allow it. So what extent did that play in an appeal, and whether or not it was a fair trial? So that's what they'll attack. Whether they can overcome it, that remains to be seen.
Really important point, particularly that propensity evidence, just because you've done something in the past. And they didn't have to even introduce evidence about violence, about physical violence. It was discussions about the way you spoke to her and beyond. How that will all play in will be really important going forward. And that's the court of law. Court of public opinion, Joey Jackson, a totally different ballgame. Thank you so much for your analysis, as always, my friend. We'll be right back.